Welcome to the Out on a Limb podcast. We are all interconnected to a greater web of consciousness. Our aim is to open your mind to a new world through having open-minded discussions about what we perceive our reality to be.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Out on a Limb podcast with your hosts, Will and Allison and Samantha, where again, the fun never stops.
It doesn't.
We are just...
He looks like Fuzzy Bear.
We are getting a lot of material for our blooper reel, actually, I'll tell you, that we're going to probably gift to you guys over Christmas like we did last year. But today we want to talk about Awakening Stories. This is a very special publication that Will and I are putting out through our publishing company, Palm and Lotus Publishing. It's an anthology of 23 beautiful awakening stories. So 23 lovely, amazing authors are getting real and getting vulnerable, like we like to do on this podcast, right? And sharing with humanity how they came to understand that life is more than just the physical body, whether that was through a healing journey, for example, a lot of people had, or some people actually saw a spaceship or had an ET encounter. Some people
Dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
Right, a dark night of the soul. There's a lot of traumatic
A lot of stuff that we've talked
stories.
about over the different
Right.
episodes that we've had.
And so Awakening Stories is our gift to you all. It's going to come out the week prior to Thanksgiving. So this episode should be airing right around that time. And so once we hit the go button, and
That's
it
the
is,
projected date, so yeah.
and it is in publication, we will let you know on our YouTube channel. We'll put up a little note. You get those messages every now and then, and you can purchase that on Amazon. But even better, we would love for you to go to the website of one of the authors. Chances are you're going to know one of the authors because a lot of them we have already interviewed on our show here. And I was going to say yours truly, but it's not yours truly, it's you truly.
Oh, yeah.
Samantha is one of the 23.
Yay.
So you can pick that up on her website if you want.
Yep.
But also lots of lovely authors that we've talked to here on our channel.
And if they don't have a website, just reach out to us. We'll put you in touch with them so you can buy it directly from them if you wish. So.
Right.
Oh, because then you get hopefully get a signature.
Yeah,
Get
right,
a
exactly.
sign,
Yeah,
a
if
little note or
you want to reach out to a specific author to get that from them because you know them or whatnot,
Or you
yes,
want their autograph
they want,
on
yeah,
it.
right. You just sign it and yeah, for sure.
Right. And so today we kind of want to talk about how that came about. And interestingly, we are hearing from so many authors. In fact, there were several authors who weren't able to commit to our project because they're trying to put out their own book.
Right.
So right now, not everyone, a lot of people are getting this call, this feeling, this push to tell their story, to share, whether that be verbally in front of audiences or on their podcast or write a book. And some of you may be in that same situation where you're just feeling this urge to connect with people, to tell your story of awakening or your lessons, your experiences on Earth in this human body to help humanity evolve, because we are right now in the throes of this huge evolution in humanity. And so lots of people are being called up to help with that, right?
Yep.
I'm getting called up to do, like there's this one fiction story that just, it keeps rolling around in my head, and it has to do with, I think it's jumping timelines, and I'm still trying to feel this person's story, what's happening to her in between the awake state and the dream state, and which is real and which isn't, and all this kind of stuff. And it's just, the story won't let me go, and it just keeps dragging me in. And I'm like, okay, at some point I got to commit to this.
Exactly. And that's what we want to talk to you guys about today is if you are feeling that push, how can you get your story out on paper?
How can you unlock that creative aspect that's going to,
Right,
move you forward?
and allow those creative juices to start flowing through your intuition and your guidance. For some people that comes natural. I happen to be one of them where writing is my thing. You have other gifts. You have a lot of gifts. Writing is mine. And so when I sit down, the words start coming, and then I read it after the fact and I'm like, wow, where did that come from? It's beautiful, right? But the Awakening Stories anthology, I think is going to be super helpful to people. I think that you all will probably find some similarities in your story, in your experience, in your journey as our authors have, and it would be a beautiful Christmas gift. So if you want to pick that up, do that.
Right, and it just to, for those that are listening, it's not just a bunch of metaphysical people talking about their awakening story.
Oh, no.
I mean, this covers, the full breadth of, humanity. I'll put it that way. I mean, every demographic, every ethnicity. I mean, it covers
Several different religions.
Right, exactly,
Different beliefs,
exactly. So don't think this is just a spiritual book or a metaphysical book of just a bunch of people talking about their spiritual awakening. This is truly individuals opening themselves up to why they feel there's a greater experience or a greater expanse of our human existence. So,
And so one of the things we're going to talk about in a podcast, and it might air shortly after this one, is this idea of fear and breaking out of your comfort zone. Now, 2020 did that for a lot of people, and we've talked about that before, how it pushed people out of their comfort zone, helped them to understand there were so many more possibilities than what they could see right in front of them, because they opened up and expanded into that awareness when they had to, right? And so writing is similar to that. I think a lot of people are very afraid because they're not strong writers, for example, or they just don't know how to get the idea onto paper.
Well, it's the same thing as if you're looking at a blank canvas and you go,
Right.
what color do I do first?
What do you do, right?
Yeah, because so many of us were trained, do paint by numbers.
Yeah, we're always
follow
told, we're always handheld.
Yeah.
how to do
So
it, right?
it's
Well, with that in mind, being handheld, our editor, Julie Savelle, I think she pronounces it Savelle, she and I decided that people need this sort of guidance, how to get the idea to paper, because it's very nebulous. You have these ideas running through your mind and you don't know how to get it into a framework and then onto the paper. So we're going to actually create a 6-week course. We just met yesterday to talk about that. We're going to create a 6-week writing course for people to do that, because she's a creative genius in terms of the content and being able to help you what's extraneous and what's important to your story.
how to bring your voice out.
And to bring your own voice, how to help that to resonate with others. And so, and then I'm a little bit more of the technical aspect and writing a rough draft and creating an outline and all of that. And so we're going to get together and do that probably starting in February. So be on the lookout for that as well. So if you're interested in getting your story on paper, look out for that. But today I really want to kind of interview Samantha about this process. So I know that
I think she interviewed us for the origin story.
She
Now we
did.
get to interview her for the awakening story. So this is kind of fun.
But I am curious about your experience overall. I'm curious about whether you had to step outside of your comfort zone to do this project, and were you kind of wishy-washy or apprehensive, or how did you feel when you were approached with that possibility?
all of the above.
You're right, yes.
Well, I mean, the first thing was who am I to write this, and who's going to want to read it? I mean,
Very, very important. I think a
that's
lot of
kind
people.
of your why, It's like,
Yeah.
It's the first big step you got to take, yeah.
yeah. And then I realized it's not about them. It was about me, that I needed to do it. And what I've learned, in the effort or under the umbrella of mentoring people, that like here I do, this intuitive work or mediumship or whatever. And people are always like, well, when did you know? And how did you, how did you learn how to do this? And, did it magically just happen? And in order to help them, I had to start dissecting what the process, where I felt the energy, because I'd never done that, and paying attention to that. So I'm likening that to this writing process that, when you sit there and you look at the journey that got you to this place, because we tell the story around in our head, but when you write it down, it's all of a sudden in concrete, kind of like, now you see it as this whole, now expressioned timeline. I don't know if that's a word, but it's just, you see it and it's like, whoa, I've been through a lot. So, and the thing is, again, that was for me, and it will resonate to people who want to try to understand. I think they want to understand my process, what I went through, and it helps them to feel sort of normal or on track, or, because a lot of times you're going through these experiences and you tend to be the one person in your family who nobody can relate to. You're the black sheep and all that stuff. So you're having these experiences alone until you're brave enough to speak out about it. So if you can pick up books and read, oh, this is how this person came to it. And this is, it helps you to feel more normal in your skin, with the whole experience.
Right. And what we heard from a lot of our authors is that it was a very reflective process, because what we asked them to do was to sit and brainstorm, because a lot of times our awakening journey can take a lifetime, but often it is quite a number of years, 5 to 10 years or something like that, where you're actually continuing to evolve and learn and study and research and grow. And so you'll get there from 10 years later and you don't really understand. You know what you are now and you know what you were before, but you don't understand the steps, and you just see this beautiful being that you are now, but you don't understand all of the divine processes that were happening, I think, behind the scenes, or even some of the stumbling blocks, how that informed your journey and how it helped you. And so you can look back at that with gratitude and appreciation when you take the time to sort of write it out in a timeline, like you said, and think back about what modalities, what people were instrumental in my awakening, or what challenges from childhood helped me to kind of break out of that mold, or to help others through that similar kind of situation. And so the reflective aspect, I think, was really important. Was there anything else about that in terms of you, rather than being able to let other people see themselves in you? But what about the learning that occurred to you as you looked back on your life?
Well, I mean, I think it helps you with your relationships too. Because I remember my husband saying, but you aren't quite the person that I married when it comes. Like, I thought I knew what I was dealing with all of this stuff, and I'm like, you just saw me in one point of this continuous timeline, because now I can see the timeline. I mean, I've always kind of known it, but I didn't realize how impactful, or how it, for me, I can see it over the span of my lifetime. It wasn't just, I felt like, and when looking back and writing it, I felt like I was being groomed, because I kept developing this whole, no, these rules aren't right. It's bigger than this, and there are no rules, and so everything I faced just kind of made me keep breaking the mold, which I think then when I hit the awakening process, because you have to be willing to be open. There has to be that, you have to believe that anything is possible in order to be able to be in the position to be able to see beyond. Because if you're closed-minded, like you're not vibing with that.
Right.
And me, I kept believing, well, anything's possible because I just experienced this. So going through that process, I could see how things were kind of circular, how they, like just how the process came about, so that when I had my particular moment of truly awakening and realizing, okay, it's not just a line about, what is it, being a spiritual being in a human body, or a human body, having a spiritual experience. I know I said that backwards, but anyway, when I finally had that experience where I was literally living as a spiritual being for 2 weeks and in my human body, like that, I was groomed and ready for that. So it didn't make me feel like I was, so anyway, it helps to see that whole process that you go through, and the fact that if it's been doing this for so long, it's just going to
continue. Right.
That's not the end of it. So I don't know if I answered your question specific.
One of the thoughts that's rolling around as we're talking about this is, a lot of people, myself included, at some point you look up to a lot of people and you kind of hook yourself to them and go, wow, I really wish I could be like so-and-so, right?
A lot of the time.
Right?
Yeah.
There's so many, and you look at them like a mentor, or just somebody that you aspire to be, and and at some point you may get locked into that, where you feel as if you're not adequate enough to ever get to that point. But going through this reflective process, it makes you realize, I would imagine, I don't know if it was in your case, but maybe some of the other authors, but where you, by going through the reflective process of going, you know what? doggone it, I'm just as good as that, And I can step a little bit further beyond my limitations that I've put for myself, and actually grow in whatever modality or whatever thing you're providing to humanity at that moment. You kind of step a little further forward in your own comfort zone, knowing that, this is where I've come from, this is where I'm at, and what I've got on my future is so wide open.
Well, yeah, and I think that's it. Like, I mean, there are times when I've just sat there and said, what the hell's supposed to happen next? Like, I'm sitting here waiting, and I don't know, I've accumulated this knowledge, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it, I'm sitting here doing like whatever, and, having gone through that process of actually seeing the patterns, cyclical patterns go through, I know, this is just a lull, and that, all of this has been set in place for this next bit of growth. And it's not for me to know how to apply it.
Yeah.
But I know that the cycles are happening faster now.
Right.
And the information's coming in more quickly and everything. So, and I think going through that process, it brings about that awareness, which I think makes the whole delivery, the ask and it's answered kind of thing. I think it makes that happen faster and faster too.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to go back to what you said about, who am I to write my story? Who's going to want to read this story? Well, the 23 authors that we have, some have had some levels of fame or they're a little bit more well-known, but these are not famous people, right? And so all of them, I think, at some point struggled perhaps with that, with this idea of who's going to be interested in my story. But you'd be fascinated. How many people watch reality TV? How many people sit there and watch mundane lives? I think you told me that in TikTok, there are people standing in their kitchen just doing normal stuff, and people are watching them live stream.
I thought we weren't going to bring up TikTok.
But they live stream life from their kitchen.
Yeah.
You're not even learning anything. But
Right.
people are fascinated by people because we all see ourselves in other people.
Right. I mean, how many people go to the coffee shop just to go to get a coffee and sit and watch people? Humans are a fascinating species, right?
Right.
So
Right.
if we can get an insight, if you can get an insight into someone's thinking, when you read that chapter, and you might read all of them and get to the very end of the chapter and you realize, oh, wait a minute, this is me. This is a reflection of me. And now I feel so much better that I'm not crazy. I'm not, thinking weird thoughts. This is where now I need to take action and go that next step or do a little something more or,
So there were a
explore.
couple of people I know that were a little bit hesitant about telling their story in the book. And what convinced them was the idea that this could be instrumental in even one person's life. Because by sharing your trauma and you being successful on the other side, having healed, having come through it stronger and better and more evolved, whatever benefit you received from that, but to share that with somebody and they can say, wow, I'm right in the middle of this crap. I'm right in the middle of that same sort of thing with alcoholism or abuse or whatever it is. And this person who is just normal like me made it through and is thriving. I can do that too.
Yep.
And so those authors were super happy, I think, and felt a little more confident in sharing their story because they knew it was going to help somebody.
Yeah.
I like that. But see, for me, I felt like I had been through so much over such a prolonged amount of time, and these were really intense spiritual lessons, human experiences. Like, I mean, spirituality was kind of on the back shelf for a while, just dealing with very serious human stuff. Which was necessary because, it was teaching me different things throughout the process. And honestly, that chapter was not enough. And I realized, no, this is a novel.
This is just the opening salvo
trilogy.
Of, right, exactly.
Yeah, but it's, and it did give me the confidence to go, wow, okay, I do have a lot to share here, because the thing is, when I tell my clients, there's nothing that you can tell me that I haven't already heard, or that, I haven't literally lived through in one way, shape, form, or another. And they go, well, okay. And they start to tell me, and I'm like, yep, got it. It's like, and, I would love for people before they work with me to read this chapter and realize, holy shit, because they look
Yeah.
at me and they just go, oh,
She's got it easy.
yeah,
Right,
it's
right.
like, she's this wet bread girl, and her dad was a doctor on an island. And so, her life was just, and I've traveled and, all this kind of stuff, and I can articulate. And, but I went through hell many times. Like my mom said one time to me, she said, there's this thing about, that rough, challenging experiences are character building. But she's like, I don't know what area left of your character needs to be built, because it's just,
Right.
I've been there, done that kind of thing.
Or that one about God doesn't give you more than you can handle. I wish you didn't trust me so much.
Right.
Yeah, but for me, just to be able to write that chapter, and also reflecting back on having already now have done the chapter, is that it's a great opportunity for people to see my experience in a nutshell, and to go, wow, okay, if she can, one of the things was a very abusive, horrible relationship, first marriage. Somebody said, oh, that's your practice husband. I was like, I like
Yikes.
that, practice husband.
Right.
And yeah, gosh, when I think about that, it's for people to try to see me the way I am, and for me to explain, no, I went through the whole forgiveness process. I know what it takes to walk the talk and step into it. But you're honoring yourself by writing this story, by saying, yeah, I faced this fire, and I don't know, there's so many aspects that just sort of, light you up inside. I'm sure for some people it had to have been triggering. I mean, for me, I've put my past is a story.
Yeah.
So for me, actually, it was easier to write. I don't sit there and, tear up and go, that asshole,
Sure,
whatever.
but I mean,
Right.
Yeah, because you've already, had a chance to
healed.
You've already healed and had a chance to work through that. But you bring up a good point in that all was that, that this is just the first chapter, and we've heard that from a number of our authors, is that, by going through this experience, it's really shed light on, I can do this. I can really talk about my journey even more. This is I think each chapter we limited it to what, like 3,500 words or something,
3,000?
like 3,000
Not
words.
enough words.
Right. That's a
But
teaser.
that's a skill too. That's a
Right,
skill too,
exactly.
to be able to condense to the nuggets that are most important.
And so that's why, and that's an excellent point. It's a condensed, packed, snapshot of these individuals' lives at that moment of what brought them to that point. So, so it is very, it is very rewarding to read all of these chapters, but then, like you're saying, it's just the beginning. It really is the
Right.
beginning.
So I want to interview and ask something. How does it feel to be on the receiving end? And, you are reading these stories editorially, but you can't help but not feel the energy from these stories. So
First of all, this was divinely inspired.
Go ahead. I'll interject.
This was divinely inspired. And so we knew that this was the book that needed to come out, and that we were going to connect with the appropriate authors. That's already an energetic process. So when we put the word out, we know obviously every author. And so we put it out to, I don't know, maybe 100 people. We got 23 yeses for people who are ready, who felt comfortable, and who were ready to be included and felt the energy also.
Yes.
That was what we were looking for, not just people to say yes. We wanted people to feel the connection to us and to the project.
And it wasn't an immediate yes. I mean, it wasn't, we filled
For
up immediately. We were almost down to the wire, and we were looking at each other like, we've got like 1 or 2 signups.
No, it wasn't down that far.
Well, it was pretty close.
At the end, we needed a couple more to round it out. But the point is that it was energetic. And so when we were reading the energy of the stories,
Mainly
yes,
you.
it was
Mainly you.
overwhelming. And our editor, Julie, she and I and Judy, who was our lead author, we were all three reading it. And every time I read a chapter, I said, oh my God, this is amazing.
That's all I heard in the house for weeks was
And
just,
then
oh my God.
I'd
oh
read
my
the
God.
next one and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And the third one and the fourth one, and
Right.
all of them, literally every one of them were incredible. And they were all different in their own way, but they were so, I mean, and we made a pact as the editors and publisher that we were not going to change much, if any, content, because we wanted this was their essence they were pouring out on paper, and we wanted it to be energetic, and that their energetic signature would be experienced in the book by
We wanted
the readers.
we wanted the reader to hear their voice, each individual voice. We didn't want that to be changed.
And so Julie worked with not each one, but whoever wanted some assistance in getting the content down onto the paper. But once it was down, there were only a couple that because of length, we had to kind of trim a little bit here and there, but the essence of their story was not changed in any significant way. So the energy of each author is going to be felt by the readers, and it's beautiful. But I'm telling you, I just was blown away by the caliber of the stories, and especially with so many of them not being writers, have never written anything before.
Right.
They were nervous about writing.
Yes.
You know, they didn't do well in English in high school or college or whatever, and so, but
That's
they went
where
out on a limb. Here we are out on a limb to do this and to allow themselves to be vulnerable.
Yeah, and for me, I have not read the chapters. I've read one chapter. Our son has a chapter in the book. So
I didn't know.
so I did read
You
that
guys
one.
are going to be so surprised when you see the whole book put together.
Yeah, it's beautiful. But my
is.
my skill set is the back end. So assembling it and putting it all together, getting it all structured correctly, and then the cover, the design of the cover, and getting all that done.
So this is the first book that we actually, he specifically, did the cover ourselves.
Yeah.
Typically, we would go with a particular program that we like, and we've done that over many books. But now that we've done that process with designers through this company, we kind of got a feel for
I
how
had
that
about
works.
six
and-
different styles that I kind of picked her brain of what's your concept. And so then one of them, I broke completely away from what she was thinking concept wise and picked this image, which is, you'll see it actually, it'll be in the beginning. Because I'll put it up. So it's going to be kind of a weird thing here. But anyway.
you are going to put it up?
Yeah, I'm going to
Okay.
put it up. So you'll see it. Maybe I'll put it up here.
Remind him to put it up.
I'll put it up here again. But it's a butterfly that spans the front and the back. And all of the authors are fed in around the butterfly
It's
wing.
gorgeous.
Yeah, it's
gorgeous.
So.
But
And there's a lot of energy in the color of it.
Oh yeah. It's a mandala. It's a butter mandala. So a
butterfly mandala?
Yeah, not butter. A butterfly mandala.
I want to see what a buttermint
Right. So, but when I broke away from what Allison had some concepts in her head, and I showed her that, she's like, I think that's it.
But we
That's
got to that together, because I was looking at mandalas in general, just round mandalas. I knew that was kind of what I wanted to do, but the butterfly encompassed what this is. People awakening out of that cocoon, that metamorphosis that we've talked about before here.
Right.
But when I would pass it off to Julie, because she proofread all of them as well, our editor, and she was also blown away. We would be texting back and forth during the day. We're like, holy crap, this chapter's amazing.
Did you read this chapter? Did you read that chapter?
Yes, and each one just got better and better and better.
Now,
It was-
the whole
was
time I'm
incredible.
sitting there going, what did you think of my chapter?
and that's
Ego's going,
Right. The humans going in.
It's
right.
funny because all 23 had to submit their chapters at a certain date, but we couldn't get through all of them at the same time, of course. So it took us 4 to 6 weeks to start proofreading. And so the poor people that were at the end, and we didn't pick them in any certain order. We just sort of grabbed whatever and started reading through them. And then I'd give some edits to each author. And the ones that were still waiting and still waiting and still waiting, they're like, why am I waiting?
Why am I back here?
Is it that bad
yes.
or what's going on, right? Oh, gosh.
no, so did a lot of people say they wrote several transcripts on it, like the process was super easy, or?
I think the majority of them pretty much wrote it in one draft. It might have taken a while to get the whole draft down. I know at least one author was going through several drafts, and she had me read her first one, and then she changed it a couple times, not significantly. But it was surprising how well Because again, we talked about this in our initial we had a big Zoom conference and we talked about this idea of sitting and connecting with your higher self, with your guides, with this intuitive stream, and allow that to flow through you, whether you're sitting and listening to frequency music or however you get into that zone. And I think these people, the authors, really took that seriously. They really took the commission, this project, this goal, seriously, energetically. And I'm telling you, everybody was just on the same page. It was just incredible.
Well, let me tell you how I did it.
Okay, good. Give us the inside scoop.
My creative process is that, I know I've got an assignment in front of me, whether it's building a website or writing some marketing pieces or something. And I can't just take notes or do the whole outline thing. I would love to do that. But for me, the whole process is generally a self-discovery. And I did creative writing in college. And my writing professor, I hated him because whatever I submitted, he would read through the whole thing and then he would circle the last paragraph and say, start here. Because I would distill all my thoughts and then get to that point.
Yes.
So I guess my creative process from that point has been that I had this ability to see things out in front of me, like spatial reasoning, they call it, or whatever. And so it's kind of like I start with this idea, okay, well, there's, this is when my, what I would call my awakening. But then there was these prepping for the awakening.
Right.
And so then I'm like, in my mind, I'm sliding things forward, almost like Minority Report when you have the hologram thing in front of you, you can slide it around.
Yeah.
So that's what it does for me. And then when it finally feels like it's like bubbling to the surface, I was about to say, like when I feel like I'm about to throw up, it's like I'm about to throw up the words. Like it builds up and then it's like, it doesn't matter what else is going on. All of a sudden it is now the most important thing I do in the day. And that moment is to sit down and write. And usually I can get it out in one sitting and it just flows through. And sometimes it's like, the most important thing is just to write.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it will flow. It'll do what it's going to do. My thing is I'm very OCD. So as I'm typing along, if words aren't correct, I'll back it up. Yeah. But it's to get it out and then go back and go, fresh eyes. Okay. Does this make sense? What am I missing here? What's not connecting? And I think you caught something in there of something I wasn't connecting or I needed to.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the great part about editing. And having done editing, a little bit of editing now, it's interesting because you are trying to honor the writer's voice, especially when it's a biography kind of thing. And yet, when you're OCD and when you've taken, like I had minored in journalism where you had to get like 95% or you failed the class and you wouldn't graduate until you got it. Yeah.
Yikes.
And it was the AP handbook. So you had to really know this stuff, which is not reflective of my writing at all because I don't write in that style. I write in a stream of consciousness. But anyway, it's really hard when you're like, God bless you for that, because to see people's writing and you just go, but they're like, I don't like ending in a preposition, but that's how we talk now. So are you going to write correctly or are you going to write conversationally and keep the flow of someone's consciousness going?
Yes, and that's what we tried to do is keep their voice. It is challenging for me because I have a certain voice and a certain way that I like to write and the way I like to read. And so it took a lot of restraint not to adjust everybody's chapter to that voice. But then once I got the hang of it, it was easier. But what I really wanted to do is, as a publisher, you're trying to not only honor the person's voice and content, but also make it exciting for the reader. Because if your voice tends to be kind of stoic and dry or what have you, the reader's going to snooze and move on to the next chapter, and I don't want that to happen. So, for example, we've had several people that had NDEs or maybe a car accident or something rather exciting that happened. And if they just said it matter of fact, I was like, no, we got to be with all these adjectives and exciting and put that at the beginning of your chapter, hook them. It's like one chapter begins with a bam.
And we're not allowed to use AI.
Right.
So you
Right.
can't, because AI is so wonderful, adjective-y and adverb-y, and just loves to expand upon that.
Right.
And we couldn't use it at all. So it was like,
Yeah.
oh, how do I make this, sound more
Had to
exciting?
dig deep.
right,
Had to
right.
dig
Yeah.
deep, right?
So I had to ask the author sometimes, can I jazz it up just a little bit? But then I gave them all of the edits and they had to agree or not. And most they enjoyed, and some they were like, oh, I really want to say it this way. And I'm like, okay,
Yep.
we're good.
So I'm helping my daughter edit her romantasy book.
Oh,
And so this is not biography.
Right,
So
right.
she is drawing a little bit on life. And with that, it's like I don't know in your course, like if it's required to have like, you build the note cards, you have to research places and mythological creatures, not like you have to have this bank of knowledge because you're working off of sort of common given knowledge
Yeah.
about dwarves or, mystical beings or, you can't.
And I
just-
think that's great for like a fiction type of book like that, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you want to have it packed with resources, yeah, for
But
sure.
the thing I found with hers was that she would write these scenes. She starts off with a real heavy scene. Like, I mean, it is hot. And I'm kind of going,
Are you-
okay.
I don't know as a mom if I'd be wanting to read my daughter's hot and heavy scene, but
Well, and I'm sitting there reading it going, okay, I don't understand. She was this way, and now she's this way. How would that work? How does one anatomically?
logistics and
So
yes.
in editing,
Yeah.
you're like, yes, I was taking myself completely out of the emotive
Because it has to
state.
make sense for the reader.
Right.
Exactly.
The reader is going to pick up on those things. And
Reader
that's-
flow is very important.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so at least one of our authors had a lot of timeline stuff, what was happening and this job and that job. And then this was happening at that time. And as I was reading, I just couldn't make sense of the timeline. So we had to work really hard to try to put clarifying phrases and sentences in there to make it make sense. Cause I couldn't grasp the timeline.
Otherwise you get, as the reader, you
get
get very,
fatigued.
yes, that's it.
You get fatigued.
Oh, you know it and you know it, but you
Yeah.
know your timeline. So you think that you're making sense, but it's not making sense to the
And
reader.
that's why God bless editors, like
Yeah.
they can see it from a totally different perspective and just say gently, you need to nudge this and do that. And
Yes, and it's so funny. It's like, you know how difficult they say that actors and actresses and people like that, famous people, are hard to deal with, and you have to, walk on eggshells around them about changing things. That's how I felt. And some of the writers were way more my way or the highway about their chapter.
oh, really?
So I really had to gently.
Wait, was I?
No,
Okay.
no.
But and she's not saying that in a bad
Mine
way.
was
It's just
so
it's,
easy.
It's
She just looked at it and said, I want you to look at this one thing. Here you go, Samantha. And it was done.
Because you know what you're doing in your story. The point is,
storyteller.
I had to work on self a lot and not get butthurt when somebody came back at me with, I don't want to change that, and I don't agree with you here, and this and that. And then I had to gently explain that I'm looking at this not only as the reader, but also as the publisher and wanting to put you in the best light. It isn't that I want to make changes just to change them. And when they understood that, and when I could communicate that in a kind way and get my point across rather than being upset and reactive,
or as
then
in,
it was understood and we came on the same page.
And from what you've told me, and I don't know this firsthand, but from what Allison has said, that there are some editors that are going to take full creative rights and change.
Oh, yeah.
And
If you
change
go with
things
a
up.
regular big name publisher,
Yeah.
you better believe they're going to change this chapter, move it there, and you don't have any control over it at all.
Yeah. So
But this is not that kind of project. This is an energetic project, and I wanted to honor their voice, and I want to honor the energy signature.
But it was interesting watching Allison's growth through this.
I
It
was
was
about to say.
really a great growth process for Allison, because it is, and I think for any of us that are confronted with those moments where we have to, I think we covered this in one of our other topics,
Yeah.
is being authentic, right? And you want to be authentic in your voice and be authentic in your creativity, but you also, you have another person that also sees it from the reader's side, and that the authenticity of the reader and how they're going to convey the information as you're trying to come across. So you have
Well, it's
to be
about
able
two
to-
different perspectives.
Right, and you have
the
to be
author
able to
has their perspective.
Right, you have to
and
speak that, yeah.
And the editor-publisher has their perspective, and you have to just communicate those in a compassionate
Right.
way, in a clear way, and you come to an agreement. But it really was a growth. It was a growth and evolution for me.
Well,
by all means.
but think about how your evolution has been. Like, writing singular stories, then writing these full stories, these channeled stories, and these channeled stories with workbooks, and and now you're doing your own anthology, with all these different writers. I mean, you're just like, you're not sticking in one area. You keep expanding it. What's the next?
It's fun.
Well, you got to get this one out first.
I am not sure what the next. It'll be something.
It'll be around Easter. We'll figure that out, I'm sure.
I don't know if we can wait till Easter. But what I do want to say to the audience is, if you're listening and this sounds exciting, and you want to be a part of an anthology, we always need a lead author. And so, if you, as a lead author, feel that you can get 20 to 25 other authors and create an anthology about a particular topic that's near and dear to your heart, by all means reach out to us, and we may be able to work out something to publish that.
Is that a secret number, like a formula, 20 to 25?
Well,
could you have 10? I'm just curious.
well-
I mean, you could have 10 if they're going to be longer chapters.
Right.
It depends on your goal.
So this particular book, for example, the origin story is approximately 300 pages, right? And that's a pretty decent sized book.
Right.
And that's about where
That's about average what you would want.
that's where the anthology is going to come in at. It's about 300 pages. I think right now we're just sub 300. It may drop a little bit below, but it's going to be in that category. So so if you take that understanding, what got it there was 3,000 words per chapter. And we're sitting at 23 authors. Now, if we had 25, yeah, it would be well over, or it would be just over 300 and
So you sort of massage depending upon the topics, depending upon how many authors,
Yep.
how many words you want them to write. So there are some anthologies that are short stories, for example. A lot of relatively famous authors will get together and contribute a short story, and sometimes those are much longer because a short story can be. But
I have a hard time reading those because I get into one author's
their style.
Yeah, their style, and then it's over. And every time I pick up a book, it's more so with fiction rather than nonfiction. Nonfiction rather than fiction. When I'm doing the untrue stories, I have such a hard time.
Fiction.
With that. Yeah. Okay. Fiction. So when I'm trying to get into the character, the plot, all that kind of stuff, I am oftentimes so resistant and just like, I don't know if I'm going to like these people.
Yeah.
Do I really want to spend my time reading this? So when you do that with these, famous authors and stuff, even though I might like the genre that they're doing, it's still, I have to, they got to grab me real
Quick
quickly
buy-in,
to like
yes.
the character.
Well, it's an
Otherwise-
investment. It's an investment of
Yeah.
your time and your
You need that
energy
hook in the
and- yeah.
beginning. That's the thing. After 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 pages, if it doesn't grab me, I put
Right.
it down.
But it's a little bit different with these kinds of stories because you're going through someone's personal perspective. You're stepping into their shoes and you're the whole time you're sitting there going, now what is this like me? Is this story like me? Is it not like me? Is this
Or
like
how
somebody
are we
I
similar?
know? Or,
Right.
So you're asking questions in your mind as you're reading it.
Right.
It's
And that's why we needed a quick hook too. We wanted some sort of catchy beginning or some, like your professor said, the beginning at the end. Like, what was the takeaway? What was your aha moment? What was the exciting thing that happened? And then let's figure out and unwind and how did you get there, right?
exactly.
So that was so much fun. So yeah, either that or if you're sitting out in the audience and you are wanting to write your own full story, reach out to us and see if you want to partner up. But lots of different options out there. So I don't know if our next book will be somebody out there or our own. Not sure what that'll look like. Gosh, we're not at the end of the 2024 yet, so it's hard to predict anything and what's going to be happening. You were talking about how the chapter is just a small piece, and you could have written a whole book really on your life. And that's what was so interesting is when you're doing an anthology like this, the topic for us was awakening stories. So we only wanted the pieces of your life that pertained
Right.
to your awakening? What were the biggest triggers, the biggest lessons, the biggest takeaways, the experiences that contributed, the people that contributed to your awakening, to your understanding of yourself as more than just a physical being?
It's harder when it's a longer experience.
Yeah. But it helps, I think, the author to, again, be succinct and pick out those pieces that were instrumental. And how can I say this concisely?
Yeah.
Because again, the reader can get kind of bogged down, but depending upon, this is what I was saying, depending upon your perspective, your story could look so different from the next author, because it depends on what angle you want to take. Because even within each person's story, you can take a different angle, whether it's the healing angle or the trauma that required the healing, or the relationships that were the most important, or whatever angle you're approaching it through. So
I'm trying to think what angle I took, and I don't really know. And for a second I was like, oh, mine's going to be boring because I don't know what angle it is. It's so funny. I just keep, but I don't remember.
it's going to be surprising, I think, when every author holds the whole book in their hand, and you see the differences in the angles through the 23 authors, right?
Yeah.
And it's a surprise because no one else has read any of the other chapters.
Well, and hopefully I'm going to read the other chapters, because I don't even watch these podcasts. Once I do something, I'm done, and very Aries.
I think you're going to want to.
Done, move on. Done, move on. It's just.
And that's so funny because I watch every
single
podcast.
episode.
Do you?
I watch snippets of certain ones. I don't watch them all. It's like my channelings. Like when I post my channelings on YouTube, nope. Hundreds
I don't know why
and
I'm so
hundreds and
fascinated
hours
by
of,
it, but
I just don't have time.
I got time.
Because there's so many other things I want to watch and read
That's
and
true.
consume and learn and do, and I don't have
Right.
enough time for all of that.
Yeah.
I've ended up skipping the ones where we do interviews. I've skipped watching those now, and I only watch these because, first of all, this comes out like 3-4 weeks after, and I forget what I said, and I'm like,
True.
did I say something dumb, or did I look dumb, but it's more fun to watch.
Never.
It's more fun to watch our
right.
banter from that side than it is from this side, because this side I'm in the moment and I'm trying to think what I'm going to say next and how I'm
Yeah.
going to bring it all together.
Yeah.
So when I watch, I appreciate you and the conversation that you add to this and contribute, and what you contribute more than I can in the moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's fun to watch it as a viewer.
No,
Sometimes she's going, okay, we need to mute her.
No, I'm really not.
Now I don't physically watch, but I will. Like if she's usually playing it, on YouTube somewhere in the house, so it's in earshot.
And he'll go, see, I do this a lot in the car when we're driving. So we drive a lot, and so I have time to do this. So are you watching that again? He's like, are you watching that? What are you watching that for? I think because you also don't like to watch yourself.
I don't. I really don't.
I've gotten over that. It
but
doesn't
I'm
bother
getting
me anymore.
I'm getting better at that
I
because
think I'm delightful to watch.
You are, and you get a lot of comments to that effect.
yes.
I think you get more comments like
I
that.
mean, I'm trying to break out of that mold of being confident behind the screen because I'm trying to do my TikTok stuff.
But you don't have anybody to look at.
I got
either.
nobody's
Yeah,
looking at it,
it's
so
weird.
it's, yeah.
I did a couple of challenges with other people where, and this is where, having done some of the MLM stuff really helped me, because they were getting me to push outside my comfort zone.
Oh, yeah.
Which was, okay, do a video this week, no makeup.
Oh yeah.
First thing in the morning, what's going on, And when you start to, it's so hard in the beginning, but once you start to break through those, before we even started, this is off topic, but before we started this, but let me go on anyway. But before we started this, we were talking about how hard it is
Yeah.
to talk when there's not
nobody
somebody
in the room,
there,
yeah.
Right.
at least rounding it around. When you're writing, you're writing with someone receiving it.
Yeah.
And you're having the conversation in your head.
Right.
But when you're speaking,
Or when we're here, we're talking to each other. But when you're sitting in front of that well, not microphone, but I'm sitting in front of my phone. The very first time, I'm like,
And you don't even know where to look.
right, and I'm like,
Your eyes are kind of like, where do my eyes go?
I must have had 50 starts and stops because I'd start. I'm like, oh no, that's not the thought I want. It's like, but now it's a little bit more fluid, but
learn
it's,
how to ad-lib.
But it's still, I don't have the, the enthusiasm that I have when I'm interacting and when there's other people
course
in the room.
not. Of
When I'm
course
sitting there
not.
by myself, it's just myself, and how am I supposed to?
You
be
have to make that
right.
enthusiasm. It's
So I
unnatural.
liken it to, the ones that can do that and are content creators, and that's all they do. They're the kids they were the kids in high school that were just that in high school.
Yeah.
They were the show of the class, right? They were not the class clown. They were just the ones that were just verbose
There are
on
people
everything.
who can
Yeah.
spontaneously
Yeah.
perform and
Yeah.
do and be and the
That's why I
drama
was
people,
never.
I
That's why I
guess.
was never in drama. That's why I
Right,
didn't do that
right.
stuff.
It's gotten easier for me as I've gotten older.
I'm having to bite my tongue because I could so go on and I'm
Save
just
that
going.
for the next podcast.
Yeah.
We have a couple more to go.
What, Sam reeling it in? Isn't that amazing?
Hold that thought.
Being restrained.
But in the meantime, yeah, this was fun. I'm glad we were able to chat about Awakening Stories. Be on the lookout for it. We will put another note out there when it goes live on Amazon, so you can pick up your copy. And if you are interested in writing your own book and you don't know where to start, be on the lookout for our writing course.
Cool.
If you are already ahead of the game and you have a lot of your story out already on paper and you need it published, reach out, palmandlotus.com. Publishing tab, and either that or if you want to create your own anthology, that would be fun. We did say, and I think when we were talking to Deborah Moffat, and she had come up with her own publishing company as well, and she realized how much work it is. It is a lot of work. So we
Pick and choose.
we say we want to publish your work, and we do, but we're also going to be kind of choosy about what we choose to publish because we just don't have the bandwidth to be a full-time publisher. But we want some good stories that you feel energetically connected to share, and specifically through our publishing company.
And of the spiritual nature, metaphysical or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that. That is
yeah.
your
Yeah.
genre.
Yeah.
Correct.
And
She's
just-
not going to produce my daughter's romantic.
No.
No,
Yeah.
no, not that. No.
We're not
although
going to put out
although it might be a New York bestseller by next week,
Yeah.
the next 50 Shades.
But
It's
yeah,
not
right, exactly. But just to also keep in mind too that you're publishing a book because you believe in what you want others to read, not to get rich.
Oh, gosh.
You're not going to get rich publishing books. I mean, that's just the God's honest truth. I mean, it is just what it is. I mean, it's like the kid in grade school that says, "Oh, I'm going to be an NFL quarterback." Okay. The likelihood of that is very, 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 very slim. The likelihood of being a New York bestseller, because I think you have to sell 500,000 copies of
And some people try to buy their own
well, and then
to get themselves up on that list.
right. So then you have a garage full of books that you
Right.
burn in about 10 years. So
But even New York Times bestsellers are not living on the proceeds
No.
on that
Yeah,
income.
the profits
You have to be a
of the book is
Stephen
very-
King or
is-
Danielle Steele or whatever to be.
it's very marginal. So
Yeah, it's really
But that's not the point.
it's
right?
honoring getting your voice out. It's honoring getting your story out. It's honoring getting that whatever's been milling about in your head, and you may have had a note that you've taken here and a page that you've written there, and you know that there's a book in it somewhere. Start putting all of that together, because the creativity now is so ripe to be picked that just get to it, get going, and
Yeah,
we're
the creative experience
right,
is fun.
and we're not here to do the creative aspect of how to structure it all. We would like you to come with a manuscript that's pretty flushed out. I mean,
except for the course.
except for the course. That's
yeah,
that's
yeah.
different. Yeah,
That's a
we're going to help you in that process. Yeah, and then we've got some things in our minds that we're going to throw out there with our course. So I'm not going to say anything more than that, because just a teaser.
I'm not sure I know what that is.
Yeah, I know. I'm
talked
looking
about
at
it. We talked
Allison
about it.
going,
We
And
talked
don't
about
forget
this.
the 12-week origin story course. You can still sign up for that. We're going to begin that in January, and Samantha has her course.
Zen Tarot, yep. Navigating your inner verse.
Interverse.
And all of that is below in the description.
Yep.
So thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Out on a Limb podcast. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up and share and like and all of that good stuff, and we will see you next time.
See y'all.
Bye.